First of all, Oliver Morris. He's a GI management specialist in the oil and gas sector, and I first met Oliver about 10 years ago when he was at the start of his journey with FME. Today, he's the geospatial delivery lead at Halliburton Landmark, responsible for delivering industry-leading geoscience exploration datasets to their clients. And there's a sprinkling of FME that helps to make it all possible. I'm really pleased that Oliver's going to give us a flavour of that capability next.
Great. Hopefully you can see my screen okay.
We've got you.
Excellent. Great. Yeah. No, thanks very much, David, for the opportunity to present to you today. I work within Halliburton Landmark, and within Halliburton Landmark, a team called Neftex Insights. When I'm not working from home in London, we're based just outside Oxford in the UK. We've been using FME for around 10 years now in desktop flavor. Today, very briefly going to talk to you about FME Cloud and how we're using some of the features and components of that. We were actually, I think, one of SAFE's first FME Cloud customers for Europe, at least. We started to have been using it, I think, since early 2014. Some of the objectives. The team I work in provide global geoscience and geological interpretations. They're used by over 20 or so oil and gas majors around the world. So we've got quite a large task of, first of all, compiling a lot of data from different data sets, and then essentially creating a diverse range of spatial data sets to deliver out to our clients. We do this in kind of three principal ways. We have a self-service data downloader, a range of interactive maps available on our website, and then a suite of Spotfire analytic dashboards. Some of the challenges we face. So we have to, we obtain all of our data from public data sources, so academic papers and national data repositories, for example. They come in a range of disparate formats, and we have to extract those, attribute and integrate them into our own kind of internal databases and into the range of products that we release out. We also need to release those products in a range of delivery formats that support sometimes very specific geoscience applications. The team that we have is, my team is not super big, so we have to try and automate as much as we can. And we also have to really focus on avoiding any data duplication and creating multiple data silos because of the additional cost that entails. This is where FME Cloud for us comes to the rescue. So we utilize FME Cloud to automate and control the publishing of all of our data from our office environment into our development and production website environments in AWS. So that can be SQL Server, tables, spatial, non-spatial, Postgres, PostGIS content, but also things like our Elasticsearch indexes, which we use for powering the search engine behind our website. Principally, though, we utilize FME Cloud for our self-service data delivery solution. So this is where customers can come along, choose an AOI, build up a list of content that they're after, and that creates like a shopping basket for them. Then they have the option of downloading that content in a range of different formats, as you can see listed. Now, one of the things that's really useful straight out of the box is that FME has support for many thousands of projections, and our clients invariably are using quite obscure ones, and we're actually able to support them and deliver that data in a range of the projections that they actually require. Some of the benefits of choosing FME Cloud, for example, over FME Server, the local install version, is principally unlimited engines. So just from the get-go, that removes the question of how many tasks do I need to run in parallel at any one time, and means that all you really need to focus on for your needs is how much hardware you require to actually do the jobs that you need to undertake. There's also the added advantage that with FME Cloud running and managed by SAFE, You don't have to worry about security updates. They're pushed through automatically. You don't have root access to that server, so there's not really much you can break, and it's really one less server that you have to maintain. And another advantage is that there's automated snapshot functionality, so you can we choose to have snapshots taken on a daily basis, which means that if anything goes catastrophically wrong, you can recover from a snapshot in our case in a matter of minutes. Hosting in the cloud obviously has, I think, the advantages that most people are familiar with regards to elasticity. So effectively, when we're doing bespoke one-off tasks that maybe create large volumes of intermediary files, we can just ramp up the drive space as we need, drop it down again, and ensure that process gets done in a very efficient way, not just in terms of putting resources against it, but also the costs of not having to get new drives in to cover that. We also have our FME Cloud environment in the same AWS space as our website environment is. So everything's hosted out of the data center in Ireland. As a result, basically, we don't need to worry about any kind of data duplication between the two, because they can reach each other very quickly, enabling high throughputs of data and just general low latency. We utilize REST APIs a lot, so we run our workspaces principally through REST calls from our website, and we also utilize the APIs that are available within FME Cloud to, for example, ask how many engines are currently being utilized and helping us with job queues as well. And finally, we utilize a lot of the alerts within FME Cloud. So setting up automatic pings when the server load gets too high, we're running out of drive space, or memory is peaking. A couple of, I guess, tips is, if you're thinking about moving to FME Cloud, go on the pay by the hour until you really know what you need. So I mean, at the moment, I think as David's already mentioned, there's, I think, 200 hours of free credits that you can get started on. So we kind of set it up as a pay-as-you-go for a few weeks, tried to understand what level of resourcing we required by looking at the monitoring, and then decided upon a professional subscription. That's made sense for us for quite a long time, but I think last year, just over a year ago, we moved to a premium subscription. So the cost difference between professional and premium is about twice, but professional is 4 cores, 16 gig of RAM. Premium is 16 cores and 64 gig of RAM. So for a doubling of the annual cost, you actually get a 4 times increase in resources. We actually also utilize pay-as-you-go still when we want to do a major server upgrade. So say we're still on 2019.2, but when we move to 2020, we'll fire up a pay-as-you-go 2020, run it through its paces before we're happy to deploy it as our production instance. Whilst you do have access to unlimited engines, there's always, I guess, a gotcha or some type of clause. Safe recommend you only use 1 engine per core, 750 mega RAM for each engine, but your mileage may vary, and it definitely does for us. So the server load you see here, that really kind of gives you an idea of the types of requests we're getting. And typically we get a lot of client requests that are going asking for large amounts of content, and then other days it can just be very small requests. So after a lot of monitoring, we kind of got to a point where we were more comfortable with the number of engines we're using. At the moment, we've got, I think, 40 engines working on those 16 cores. But of course, we've always got alerts. So if the server load gets too crazy, or we have very high memory use, then we'll get notified, and we can act accordingly. But most of our workbenches are relatively light in terms of resource, so we can get away with having more engines. One thing that isn't native to FME Cloud, and is actually part of FME Server, is queues. I think they're super useful. They maybe don't get the the recognition or attention they deserve. But effectively, you can use queues to group related jobs and assign a number of engines to a queue. So essentially, you can define a level of service for each task. So in our case, we have a queue for really intensive tasks and a queue for light tasks. An intensive task would be when a client comes and wants to download absolutely everything. It's going to take like 16 hours to run, and we really don't want that to impede another user who just wants to download just a very small area. So large users or big bulk requests go into an intensive or heavy queue and have engines assigned specifically to that task. And then users that have gone in, client users that have gone in, just requested a country and a small subset of data, that request would go and feed into a light queue, which has its own engines. And even though that intensive task is running, we can still serve a number of clients that are requesting lighter tasks at the same time. So that's actually a really neat tool. And we also utilize assignment of engines to different queues to parallelize tasks as well. So for example, with the self-service downloader, we export out data from kind of a temporary staging PostGIS environment out to shapefile and also to file geodatabase. With shapefile, because it's file-based, you can essentially push that data out concurrently. So we have 5 engines to export that data out to shapefile, whereas with file geodatabase, it can only run serially. So it turns out within that export process, you can have that component at least running 5 times faster to shapefile. I guess another reason why shapefile, even 20 years on, is still a format to be contended with. To conclude, I think, yeah, as David was saying before, got a bit of time now and maybe some playing around time. There's free credits to give FME Cloud a spin. Maybe you've got a bespoke task that you don't want to soak up your computer at home in doing. It's quite a neat way to not only get a task done, but also learn a bit about FME Cloud or FME Server if you're not familiar with it. At the same time, you can be monitoring your workloads through that web console and get an idea of how intensive those tasks are if you were to move to FME Cloud or Server going forwards. And yeah, just take a look at server queues. If you're having problems with bottlenecks and just generally tasks hogging up different components, yeah, worth a look. So yeah, with that, thanks very much, and hope you enjoy the rest of the presentations.
Brilliant, thank you, Oliver. That's really great. One of the questions is that's come through is that it was noticed that you had FME AR as one of the formats that you're offering. What are the use cases that people are? If you're offering that as an output format, what use cases are you seeing for augmented reality?
So yeah, so the augmented reality and the 3D PDFs are super useful for showing basically the depth to basement. So kind of like the DEMs, but the actual depth to the core. So what we're doing is creating kind of 3D model cross sections, and it's really quite difficult to show that inside our 2D mapping platform. It's much nicer to show it either as a 3D PDF or in AR. And what's really worked quite effectively is when we're going out to when we're actually able to get out and visit clients, is to just get them to take out their phones and essentially send them one of these files so that they can play around with it and share it with their higher management. I think a lot of their managers are just dealing purely with spreadsheets. I know, as much as we like spreadsheets, but something a little different is always nice. So being able for people to handle those, to play around with actual data on their mobile phone is just another way of getting our content out to a wider audience, basically.
Thanks. And one of the other questions is if you've got FME Cloud, which is obviously out in the big wide world, how do you deal with processing on-premise data? Do you have any, or you know, how are you handling moving data around within your organization?
So I guess we're quite fortunate in the fact that the connection between our AWS environment and our office is actually really quite nippy. But most of our data that we would have big bulk tasks to do, it doesn't actually take that long to send up to FME Cloud. So again, we can use a queue to assign it to a set of engines, and for bulk tasks, we can ensure that those processes happen without affecting the other components of our website. So yeah, we utilize it on occasion, but it's more principally for powering some of the key components of our website. And we've got around, I think it's, yeah, eight or nine desktop licenses at the moment to run other tasks in the office as well.
And I mean, from my perspective, it's really nice that you've mentioned queues as a highlight, really, because it sets me up rather nicely for a little bit later on, because there's a really important innovation coming down the line, and queues are going to be really important for that capability. So I'll touch on that in a bit more detail soon. But I mean, it's also important to say that if you're interested in you know, having an FME Cloud environment, then maybe if you don't have the resources like Oliver's got to look after that environment and reconfigure it and support it and do things like upgrade and port all your content between instances, then we offer a fully managed service around the FME Cloud stack. So, but you know, that's superb and a really, really solid use case. So thanks ever so much, Oliver, for your time.
Cheers.